Hey everyone, welcome to Food Talk Live. A reminder that this episode will also appear on our podcast, Food Talk with Danny Nierenberg. So please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. It really means a lot to me if you go and rate and review, and it helps us quite a bit. So please rate and subscribe wherever you listen. Today has been a great day for me because I get to talk to people who are so passionate about farming. Earlier today, I talked to Gwen Cokes, who's working with Civic Works here in Baltimore, where I live, and providing not just CSAs to folks like me, but also providing lots of free produce to people all over Baltimore, and making sure that especially elders and people who live in underserved communities are getting nutritious, delicious food, and that they understand how to eat it and how to cook it, and are learning a lot from it. So that's why I'm really excited to talk to Lori Cochran-Dougall, who's the executive director of the Westport Farmers Market in Westport, Connecticut. She has revitalized that market that was started by a good friend of Food Tank, Michelle Nishan, along with Paul Newman, who I wish I had known. But Michelle has been such a great advocate for the work that we do, and he's obviously such a staunch advocate for making sure that people eat well with his organization, Wholesome Wave. Lori, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for deciding to join us. I know it's a crazy time. You just got off a call with all of these other farmers markets, and you're like a lot of us are on Zoom calls about 24 hours a day. So thanks for being here.
It is completely my pleasure. It's actually, it's a true honor. I definitely love everything you've been doing, and we've followed you for a while. And I think actually Michelle Nishan is who kind of led me your way. And but thanks for all that you do too, because without people like you, it's just our voices. You help get our voices out, so we appreciate it. But it's an honor. I do wish I had a little makeup on and looked all spoofed up.
You look great. Like I said before, it's a pandemic. I think we're all allowed to like chill out a little bit about our looks, because it just doesn't matter as much as it used to.
Amen.
So you have been doing amazing work with the Westport Farmers Market. Can you just give us a little bit of background? I mean, I described who sort of started it, but you really turned it into something special.
Oh, well, that's humbling and very kind. Thank you. Yeah, it's a passion for sure. And 10 years ago, I had the pleasure of taking over this market. And I've come from a really strong background of believing in local food and farmers markets.
Sure.
And I was very lucky to have a municipal support that allowed me to do what I have kind of wanted to do, is create a community hub, but also that helps educate and feed, and with the complete essence focused on creating economy. Because I think the more that we create local economy and support our local farmers and our mom and pops, the stronger we are and the more good that we can do within our community. So I really stand by a strong core there.
That's such a great phrase, too, creating economy, because it goes beyond sort of like economics. It's really creating this rural or regional food economy that, feeds us all. And I know that that sense of community is very important to a lot of farmers markets.
Yes.
And now with COVID-19, there's, community means something very different when you can't interact or shake the hand of your farmer or ask her where she grew, the amazing stuff that you're eating. How are you dealing with all of that?
I'm thinking a lot about it. I'm contemplating heavily. I am looking to people that I look up to and how they are doing things. I'm following people like Dan Barber and Michelle, and they're just, the names could actually go on and on, even local farmers here and what they're doing, what their thoughts are. And also at the same point, just trying to think outside the box. How can we keep people safe? But how can we also create economy for these farmers? I'll get back to creating economy, but how can we create income and economy for farmers? Yes, like a farmer's market is an experience. We all love the experience. I mean, especially, hence it's my job at the point. But now we need to create an experience, but at the same time, we really have got to figure out how we're going to get enough numbers through that the farmers and the vendors that walk home at the end of the day are going to be able to continue doing what they're doing. And then for us as farmers markets, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our organization. While we want to save every small business, we really have got to focus on how we support and save, not save, but support and grow our organization so that we can help more small businesses and farmers in the future.
Yeah,
And so you kind of
absolutely.
start with you kind of start with your core. How do you secure yourself? It's just like the local food industry. Secure yourself, and then you can reach your arms out and
Put
give
your
bigger
mask
hugs and
on.
care
Put
hugs.
your
Yeah, put
mask
your
on
mask
before you
on, and
open
you
it.
can do
Yeah.
it. Exactly.
Yeah. What are you hearing from the farmers from the market? What are their sort of biggest, I guess, I mean, I'm scared for them, so they must sort of
Yeah.
be scared for themselves, not just like losing money, but this is a health crisis.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's battled their own issues at different times. I wouldn't feel comfortable clumping all farmers and how they've felt about this situation
Sure,
into
sure.
one comment. The overarching thing I have found with the farmers that I'm working with at our market is that they have jumped in headfirst to try this model. And to me, it's a testament of our community. I couldn't have done this without them, actually, obviously, but without them willing to take on the mistakes, the errors. How do we create it? We're on emails back and forth until we've
Yeah,
kind of gotten into a nice flow. But truth be told, these small farmers, they deserve to be they deserve the influx of people buying from them that they're receiving right now.
right.
And they have more sales in some regards than they did at other times. So I hope it continues. I mean, if people are worried about food security, this is it. Like, get it from the people that are growing it that you can walk or drive to their farms. And they're going to
Uh,
continue to grow their seeds, that can save their seeds and can continue
right.
to grow it to feed us.
No, I mean, it's so important,
Yeah,
and you're not the first person, and you won't be the last person on this live cast who says that. Like, pandemic or not, these farmers need to be supported. So
right.
let's, learn from this crisis. It's, crisis brings about opportunity, but we have to continue supporting farmers after this is over. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't go back to the grocery store, but I do think it's changing how people perceive what food security and maybe what national security looks like.
Oh my gosh, completely. It's an interesting thing if you look back through history and you look at each crisis that has hit throughout mankind. At each time, food becomes the core. Where
Right.
are you going to get your food? And each time, the farmer, whether it be a male or a female or it's Victory Gardens or wherever it landed, agriculture is what was considered security. And
Right.
it's interesting that we've grown into a society that we're now looking at this big ag, this GMO food and this non-nutritious food or unnutritious food, whatever it's supposed to be. We're looking at it at this point as it's supposed to be the saving grace to feed people. Well, here we are, we're in a crisis again, and the reality sets in that the place you get food is from small to mid-sized farmers.
Right. And
And until we acknowledge that we cannot sustain off of the backs of ill treatment of our environment and our animals, and that then in ill treatment of humans, we're going to be in this situation over and over and over again.
right, right. We really do need to learn from history this time. I mean,
Yes.
I'm hoping this is what, for all of us, just sort of knocks some sense into us. I mean, we all
Right.
become kind of complacent when things are easy and food is easy to get, and you don't have to suit up
Right.
or, stand 6 feet apart in a
Right.
line. And so I do hope that after this, we'll appreciate everything a lot more. Even those of us who like think about food constantly, I can't wait, to like be able to interact at a farmer's market or go to a
Right.
restaurant where I know where they have, the farms that they purchase their food from. I think those experiences will be much more delightful
Right.
than in the
And
past.
And I've been impressed with the guys and gals, the restaurants that are open currently and their efforts to continue to buy from farms. And
Yeah,
if we all really kind of keep at our core and do what we can, obviously there are times and places that people can't afford, we're talking about food insecurity a little bit, they can't afford things, and or amazing organizations like Wholesome Wave step in, but maybe people start growing some of their food, and
yeah.
we start bringing plants, single lettuce plants, single basil plants. Maybe we start looking at how do we help people grow their own food, even in small batches.
Right. Yeah, there's so much opportunity there. And people,
Yes.
I mean, we've seen all the run on seed, seed
Right.
websites and on, there are seed stores that have closed down because they couldn't handle the influx of, and couldn't keep
I'm
their workers safe. So
so
I think people are, again, it's a little bit selfish. I mean, I'm sure like you want to make sure that you have enough food during,
Right.
you know, because nobody wants to knows what's going to happen. But it's also such a, I'm really impressed by people who are like learning to grow their own food and watching all these videos. And
Right.
Ron Finley has a master class on
Right.
how to
Yeah,
grow like food in an urban area. So it's very kind of an exciting time for the food movement.
it is. Yeah, it's funny. I feel like, we've all hustled, grabbed a hold of things, been holding on by tiny strings, and this is our chance to shine and to show. Now, the reality of it is, though, we need to dig in and create a voice, a unified voice that is strong, and hopefully people will continue to listen, is what you said, because right now the big box stores, the lobbyists, are sitting back, their dollars are accruing, their dollars aren't going away, and they're just
Right,
waiting for the opportunity to hit every single marketing point that they can. And they are going to hammer every purchaser to say, come in our big box store, buy
right.
our quote unquote local food. That's a concern. I mean, we as
Absolutely.
local farmers and vendors and farmers markets really do have to continue. We have to work harder than ever right now. Ever. I actually
I,
had a pep talk with all of our vendors the other day. I was like, if anybody complains to me about working hard right now, don't, because we're lucky to have jobs, and we need to buckle down and work as hard as we can and say our graces every day and get up the next day and work that much harder.
I
And it's
feel
our
the same.
responsibility to do that.
Yeah.
We need to help feed people. That is what our job is.
Yeah, I feel that sentiment very much. I'm grateful to have a job right now when so many people don't.
Same.
I'm grateful that
Yeah.
farmers are being kept in business by whether it's restaurants or, people who are buying from them. There is a lot more gratefulness that we need to have at
Yeah.
this time. And that will help, I think, quell some of the anxiety that I know I feel every day and that
Yes.
we all wake up sort of feeling this uncertainty. You started working with the market 10 years ago. And, 2010, it's hard for me. I was trying to remember 2010 today. It was a very different time for
Yeah.
like the food and agriculture movement in the United States, at least. And I'm wondering, what changes you've seen and how some of the strategies that you developed for the market that really made it successful.
Well, oh my gosh, great question. Funny enough, while you were asking me that question, I was envisioning me moving here. I moved here from Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and it
Right.
was a corporate market person. And I remember coming here, my husband was like, why don't you just try to do something and something you love, like farmers markets, just take a break. And I
Great.
remember calling Michelle, calling Wholesome Wave, cold calling Wholesome Wave, and thinking I
Nice.
had met Paul Willis from Nyman Ranch. And Paul was like, just
My
call,
favorite
it'll be great.
farmer. My favorite farmer of all time.
Oh my God, I love that man. I mean,
Me
great man.
too.
I agree. Just kudos to you. Hopefully he's watching and he'll send a little question and be like, hey, I like these
Sure.
ladies. Uh, but yes, he is a great man. And I remember just calling Michelle and be like, hey, do you mind getting on the phone with me? And then he had actually not been a part of the market anymore. But to your question, it, I think for me, I just have really believed in that a farmer's market's a great entry place for local food. It's a little, if you're a sports enthusiast and you follow high school sports, it's a little bit like JV. Sometimes people say it's like JV. You show up, you watch somebody come. I sadly know when everybody comes, I know their times. We even have 3,000 plus shoppers, but I know pretty much everybody.
Great.
And they come, they'll get their baguette the first time, and then the next time they're buying lettuce. And then, within 4 weeks, they're there for 3 hours visiting all of
Yeah.
their friends and their bags. And then they buy a CSA. And then 3 years down the road, they've planted a garden. It's this beautiful evolution. And it's like the moment it clicks, it's in you and it just
Right.
can't stop. And it's almost like the green movement too. It's like you learn one thing and you want to forget it, but you're never going to forget it. You're never going to forget
Right.
how good that tomato tastes or that great feeling. And I don't know. I always I want everyone to, this isn't off your question, by the way, but it's just a little
No,
thing
that's great.
for me, I want everyone to just always visualize and what it feels like when you walk in a grocery store, pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, you put your hands on a cold, dirty, shopping cart and you're rolling through aisles with all these faces. You've got all these
Yeah.
little faces looking out at you and you're getting a box. The person beside you rarely will say hello to you. Maybe they say
Right.
hello if their cart hits your cart. And then you check out. Now they don't even want you to check out with an individual. And by the time you leave and you get in that car, if you ever ask yourself, was there one person in there that actually cared about me?
Right.
There's not.
Right.
And then you go to a farmer's market and there might be a line, it might be awkward, you might have to talk to the weird person, but that's it. Like that's life,
Right.
and your
Right.
dollar has gone directly to the farmer. So I'm always, every time I have to walk in a grocery store, I just get a little disgruntled. But it's a beautiful thing too. I'm grateful for grocery stores. Don't burn me alive for
Absolutely.
that one. But
No.
I mean, it's just, I obviously have a passion around it. So I think the core's been just trying to educate, trying to make this a place of conversation. I think that's key, just us talking as human beings. We're getting
Right.
back to this one-on-one and having a space to slow down. And that is what COVID has done. COVID has slowed us down. There are conversations like this happening. And we as
Yeah.
farmers market managers have a road ahead of us to keep that conversation going. And while continuing to create this economy for the farmers. And it's one we're going to figure out. The what you watched Westport Farmers Market, we're going to have it dialed here pretty soon. So
I'm sure you will, and I
yeah,
will continue to watch. But I think you bring up this really interesting point about depersonalization and how even though we have all this sort of physical distancing happening now, I'm feeling more connected to people when I do interact with them, when I have to run to the corner market to get something, or when
yeah,
I interact with a person who delivers, my CSA bag every week. Like I feel way more connected than I did before, and maybe it's because I'm seeing fewer people,
right.
but it's a very interesting sort of psychological experiment that's happening to all of us right now, and how we interact with one another, whether it's over StreamYard, which is how we do this conversation, or
Right.
whether it's sort of in the street when you see people not wearing a mask when you wish they were, that kind of
I know,
stuff.
totally. You're like, you should be wearing a mask at the moment. I know. That's a great point. Maybe it's quality over quantity. And that
Yeah.
we're in this space of that we are engaging with less people. So we have an opportunity to have a more quality engagement with each of them. And I don't want to lose that
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how to hang on to it. I am concerned, and I certainly, every market has to do the model that works for them. So I place no judgment on any model that works or doesn't work. And I'm kudos to anybody who's figuring this out. I am concerned, and this was the call I was on before, of the drive-through model. And one,
Yeah.
that farmers are sitting in exhaust for how many
Right.
hours, and that it's just car upon car of exhaust upon exhaust,
Right.
which goes against the essence of what we're trying to do. I mean, it's
Right.
grow your own food, help the environment, help our society. And you're putting these vendors in a pretty tough predicament by needing to sit there to make their livelihood. And
Sure.
then beyond that, it's where do you disconnect? I don't want to be a big box store drive through. That that isn't. I hope we don't stick with that. I really hope we don't stick with it
Yeah. Yeah. I
because we
think we have
challenge.
absolutely. I think we have a lot to figure out post pandemic about how to keep people safe, over the next 6 months, over the
Right.
next, 18 months, whatever it is, and really envision what a farmer's market in, an urban or para-urban community really looks like, and what will we want from it while we still have to remain sort of distant, and
Completely.
I don't know any city planners or farmer market gurus like yourself who've quite figured that out yet, because we're all still learning. And like I said before, everything's changing from day to day.
Completely. I mean, you think that you have the recipe down and you're very excited about it, and then you'll get a governor's announcement and you
Right.
think, well, that drawing board just went right out the window. But it's also exciting. I mean, isn't that kind of the fun of our jobs and our world, is that
Right.
we're problem solvers. Hopefully we're change agents, and that we get to be on the ground level hustling to come up with these solutions. And for me personally, I feel honored to get to be one of those people. And I am okay if I stumble. I'm okay if I make a mistake.
Right.
It's great. I mean, that just means that maybe I've made a mistake that someone else doesn't need to make. And like the call I was on earlier, these people just told me about this new app that might completely change two of the biggest issues I've been running into.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's about. It goes back to it. So maybe this is it. Maybe this is the communication, is that
Right.
we are now talking to people that before we never did. And to
Right.
that testament, this time has slowed me down enough where I am talking to, there are food arena people that I have longingly watched forever from afar. And I've had the
Right.
privilege to actually speak to them. I mean, like being on this, but yeah. I mean, so
No, me too. Yeah. people I would never have had the chance to meet because we didn't end up in the, the same country or the same county or the same conference, I get to talk to now. And that's really exciting to me. You said a few things that really resonate with me. One is you talked about how the slowing down, we're having more sort of quality interactions with people. And I think also for me, I care more about the people I interact with. And not that I'm not, an uncaring person, but I'm seeing sort of the same people
Right.
over and over again. So I feel sort of like, how are you doing? Is I don't know their first names, but it's just like, because I see, my postal carrier now every day when I would only see her, maybe a couple of times a month.
And you want to
It's
check
just
on her.
right. I want to make, are you safe? Can I bring you a cup of coffee? What can I do for you?
Well, it's funny because I think we in maybe this industry and other industries have heard a lot over the last years that there's an awakening happening, and this
Right.
awakening was coming, and that it was going to happen this way, and there were predictions it was going to happen one way or that way or however. And the reality of it is that it is, I think it is here. And I think that it's at the end of the day, Mother Nature is saying, wake up and listen. You need to
Right.
listen to what I'm saying and you need to honor what I'm saying. And if you don't, I'm going to punish you. And maybe that's a little dramatic and however, but why not take the chance? Why not slow down and say hi and listen to the other people? One
Right.
of the things I've loved about our market that we've set up is that now there are people that are signing up for the same time every week to come get their food because they've kind of gotten to know the other people in the line. And so you'll hear
Right.
them like, "So are you doing okay this week?" And they don't know each other and they're 10 feet apart, but they're making friends.
Right.
And what
Right.
a beautiful new thing that, and who
Right.
knows, when they take their masks off, they never know who each other are again. Like,
Right. Right.
good to know.
It's a little bit maybe like when the internet first started and people would like discover one another in chat rooms before it got all
Right.
weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
it's like kind of,
Right.
analogous to that. We had a comment up about portable, I think it said portable. Can you bring that comment back up, Bernie? Do you have a chance? It was Japan has portable vegetable markets, so
Yeah.
mobile vegetable markets, and I think that's we certainly have those in Baltimore. They're in many
Yeah.
cities all over the country.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say, I think it says consider produce buses to neighborhoods. I think that that's pretty prominent in most cities at the moment, from my understanding. There's some great ones right around here: Hartford,
Absolutely.
Stanford, Bridgeport. Yeah, I've seen some super cool buses. Great use of it too.
And then another from one of our favorite commenters, Douglas, you have to pave the way with friendly legislation allowing such sales and markets. What's your take on policy right now and what's going on with, um, aid to farmers and some of the work that's being done on the legislative side?
Um, well, I think it's hard to, you know, I am not going to sit here and complain about what anybody's done and how they've handled anything in this because no one knew how to handle this. And so, I hats off to everybody who's done good and worked hard. For us here in Connecticut, I've really had hoped that our Department of Ag would take a stronger leadership role and provide a little bit more of a guide for us. And I think that they are, as I said before, they're catching up. Everybody's catching up. No
Sure.
one knew how to handle this. But I think that there is a responsibility that we need leadership, especially within agriculture, to focus on small and mid-sized farms. I'm still,
Absolutely.
in my opinion, I'm dancing around it, but I'm not seeing it. I see that there's a lot of aid, there's a lot of conversation, but it's all focused on the big ag. And I think 60 Minutes did a segment this past week or the week before that had my blood pressure through the roof because that was all about big ag. That had
Sure.
not much to do about these small to mid-sized farmers who, when you really look at who grows the nutritious food in this country and who is a sustainable model, they're it.
Right. And it's not just
Hopefully
in this
I said
country.
that in the most politically correct way I could, because give me a glass of
You
wine and I'll really tell you what I think. But
next time, but you can say whatever you want. But I think you're absolutely right that small and medium-sized farms in this country have not gotten enough attention. And they are producing most of like you said, the nutritious food. They're
right,
not producing corn and soybeans. And that is the
exactly.
same, the same is true for farmers all over the world. It's small and medium-sized farmers who are really feeding the world. And we
Right.
need our legislators and our policymakers and our leaders, so-called leaders, to really
Leaders. Yeah.
catch up to that and
Right.
they haven't yet. So
They
again,
don't even acknowledge them, which is part of the frustration. We have just a side note, but we have a farmer. One of the reasons we have this going for the past 7 weeks when we were supposed to be closed is that we have a farmer that their USDA loan wasn't forgiven during this time. But how about the guys that's sitting out in North and South Dakota that all of theirs have been forgiven right now? Now, how in the world does that happen, that we can't get a small farm or mid-sized farm in that covered? So it is frustrating in our industry. And I think until we can get some representation for small to mid-sized farms in anywhere we don't even have it on our state level here.
Yeah.
So until we can actually get some government representation for these guys, it's a struggle.
Absolutely.
But the good part about it is we're strong enough without them. There's an undercurrent, and that is the beauty of this.
That undercurrent is pretty amazing. A few years ago, there was a movement to get union members to run for office, and I would like the same to happen for farmers. We need more farmers who are in public office at the small level, at the national level, on school boards. I think, having that food voice, and, Sam Cass, who worked under the Obama administration, he has talked a lot about whether, there's a food movement in the United States. And he's like, if we're really going to be a movement, it has to be a political movement with clout. And I've said this before, and I hate to repeat myself, but I think that, COVID might be the thing that sparks this really political force of food and agriculture people who are making change, at the policy level, finally.
Yeah, finally. And that the voice is so heard and the necessity is there, that how do you slow that down? You can't. Right? Or I guess that's where I kind of get into the concern of it, is that are we able to have the strength in that model? Because when you look at the grocery lobby, when you look at the pork lobby, when you look at the dairy lobby, it's strong. They're really strong. It's hard to go against. And
that's why we need campaign finance reform. We need lots of things to happen. Yeah. We need to get the money out of politics, and I'll get a lot of flack for saying that too. But yeah.
Amen. I'll back you on it. Keep it in here.
Thanks,
I agree.
Lori. I can't wait until we can have a glass of wine together. That'll be great.
Come. That would be great.
Before I ask you the final question, because I've kept you on quite a long time, I want to let people know that they can find more information at westportfarmersmarket.com. And they can follow you on Instagram at Westport Farmers Market. So lots of really good photography there, and I'm sure some great information. I want to know who is inspiring you the most right now. We've talked about Michelle Nichon, who you and I both adore. We've talked about Paul Willis. Who is inspiring you the most right now?
Honestly, who I've been following really closely, Dan Barber. His voice has really recently, maybe it's because I'm not going to lie, social media to me can be a bit maddening.
Sure.
But he has been populating in my feed at the right time when I know I've needed to look at my stories or do all the things that you have to do. And some of what's coming out, the voice that's coming out, the initiatives that are coming out of there are, as always, just very thought-provoking, but I tend to like solution-oriented options, and I find that he's putting solutions out there, and he's also willing to fail, which I like that he's willing to put solutions out there and to say, if this works, great. If it doesn't work, then I'll start over. But he's been the last couple of days really resonating for me.
He's very humble, very thoughtful, and very wise. He's also one of my favorite people, so I'm glad you said him. Thanks so much for being with me today. A reminder that this episode will also be on our podcast, Food Talk with Danny Nierenberg. So please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And I hope everyone will join me on our next episode, when I'll be talking to John Piatti, the president and CEO of the American Farmland Trust. Thank you so much, Lori. Please stay well.
Thanks for having me. Be well.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks.